You are quite likely comfortable writing reports. Reports focus on obvious claims and are developed with factual statements. Reasons are not required, and there is often no need to explain the significance of the facts used. In this class, you will be asked to write arguments. Remember that arguments must have a conclusion and reasons that are supported by evidence. In creating an argument, you must look at the evidence and infer your conclusions and reasons. Take a look at the facts provided here. What is your conclusion? Notice that the facts can lead to different conclusions. All conclusions can be equally right and equally wrong. Therefore, it is your responsibility to articulate the why and the how do you know for any conclusion. Presenting the why and the how do you know may be awkward for you because in daily conversation we have a tendency to present factual evidence and rely on our audience to infer what we mean. For instance, note the conversation here. Hey, Arturo, a bunch of us are going out tonight. Do you want to come with us? Thanks, but I have a lot of homework to do. The message received is that Arturo cannot go out tonight. I'll ask him another time. But let's assume that Arturo said, thanks, but my dog's been alone a lot recently. I better spend some quality time with him. Arturo hasn't the slightest interest in going out with us. I won't ask him again. Or let's take a look at another. Mr. Brown, I think I'll apply for that manager's position that is opening up. What do you think? Well, Artemis, you know that you don't have a college degree. The message received, Artemis shouldn't apply for the job because she isn't qualified. But you can't be sure when you do this that your audience is getting the right message. Look at the advertisement to the right. Look at the audience response. This viewer had some anger issues over abandoned shopping carts, but they weren't the ones in the mobile app. They were the actual physical shopping carts that people were leaving around outside the store. Obviously, this reader did not get the message. Good writers, to avoid confusing your message and make sure that you increase its receptiveness, use the PACI pattern. Let's review what you learned about paragraphs in English 101. All of the above criterion must be present in a good paragraph. All paragraphs have to start with discussion points. It is imperative to remember that your conclusion expressed as the discussion point must have two parts, the topic and the opinion, attitude, or observation. While the topic may be the same for many people, the attitude, opinion, observation may change. For instance, let's take a look at the topic, text messaging while driving. Three possible discussion points are, text messaging while driving is as dangerous as drinking and driving, or text messaging while driving needs to be discussed in driver's education classes, or perhaps text messaging while driving is unstoppable. In order for your paragraphs to both be unified and clear, everything in the body of the paragraph must be related to both the topic and the opinion expressed in the discussion point. The SEE pattern is an acronym for a reasoning pattern that ensures that you clearly articulate your argument. When writing the C pattern, begin with a point that you want to make. The point is a claim, opinion, or observation that can be debated. Follow with the supporting reason. The reason answers the question why. Why is my point relevant? For example, let's assume we have the point, text messaging while driving is unstoppable. Your supporting reason would be people think that they can text and drive safely. Now provide evidence. Follow the point with supporting evidence. The evidence is specific, verifiable information that answers the question, how do I know? Evidence for this particular pattern could be, for example, Patrick Sims was sending a text message while driving when he hit and killed a 63-year-old man on a bicycle. Text messaging while driving didn't seem dangerous, Sims said, because I had done it plenty of times before. Finally, end with an explanation. The most significant part of the pattern is the explanation. This is the portion of the paragraph that explains how or why the evidence supports the claim and is important. The explanation answers the question, what does it mean? Take a look at the explanation. Sims is an example of a number of young people who continue to send text messages while driving because they have not yet experienced any negative consequences. They simply ignore the danger. Unfortunately, if and when they do experience negative consequences, their lives and the lives of others may have been ruined. Now let's put it together. Take a look at the pattern put together in a paragraph. Notice how I highlighted the parts of the C pattern. If it is done correctly, there will be a nice even pattern of colors. Let's take a look at the evidence, however, and see another paragraph with a different conclusion. Notice how the evidence is exactly the same, but changing the reason and the explanation changes the argument. The C pattern can be used in everyday discourse as well. Let's assume that Artie was late with a paper, and he wrote to his instructor, "I'm sorry the essay is late. I had a family emergency." That's it. Instructors get this excuse a lot, and therefore they are unlikely to be sympathetic. If Artie wants a reprieve, he needs to articulate how he defines emergency. He must make his values clear and/or define his terms in the text. Saying "don't make it so," Artie has to explain his reasoning if he wants to convince the audience. Look at his argument in the C pattern. When you're writing, you need to remember that facts are just artifacts. They mean nothing by themselves. You, as the writer or the speaker, give meaning to the artifacts. And the C pattern allows you to do this. Look at the following evidence. Professor Scott's American History class had 25 students, and the average grade in his class was 65%. As you look at this fact, you can draw different conclusions. Artemis wrote, "Professor Scott was a horrible teacher. His exams were unfairly difficult. Our class had 25 students, and even though he provided study guides and hosted study sessions, the average grade was 65%. If exams were fair, the class average should be a C. In fact, study guides and study sessions should make the average much higher. The fact that students were provided with study aids and still couldn't earn a C on the exams shows that Professor Scott's exams are much too hard." Artemis used the fact to support her claim that Professor Scott was a horrible teacher. On the other hand, Artura used the same evidence to support her opinion that Professor Scott was an excellent teacher. Notice that the evidence was just an artifact. Artemis and Artura brought their own meaning to the evidence, and it was their responsibility to explain that meaning to you, the audience. When you are writing, remember that the discussion point establishes your conclusion, the point that you want to make. Remember that the supporting reason establishes why the discussion point is valid. Provide evidence evidence that is a specific piece of information that illustrates how you know that the discussion point is valid. End with explanations that clarify what the evidence means. Remember that facts don't mean the same thing to all people. You have to explain what it means to you. This is a very simple pattern, but it's flexible and powerful. And more importantly, it will be used in every paragraph you write in this particular class.